Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. Brandon again. I want to give you guys an update on the Juggernaut training that I've been running for 13 weeks now. That's right. You could say things are getting pretty serious, but I'm on a deload right now, so I figured I'd give you an update. It's been a couple of weeks, and I'm just wrapping up my first strength training block. And for those that don't remember or haven't seen any of these updates yet, this is actually my third training block I've done. The first two were hypertrophy, and the ways that those work is you start with lower volume, and volume increases each week, as does the intensity. You work up to some max effort sets, and then you kind of reset things with a deload, and then do it again. So I ran two of those back to back, which led me to my first strength training block, which was my last video update, where things are obviously a little bit different. In this case, we're actually starting with higher volume and shedding volume as we go, as intensity ramps up. Again, working towards some of those max effort sets. And I want to take this time to thank Magic Spoon, who's sponsoring these strength training blocks that I'm on. And you're probably familiar with them with their high protein cereal. I've talked about them before. 14 grams of protein per serving, only 4 net carbs. It's keto friendly, soy free, GMO free, grain free. Pretty much any funky diet you might be on, you can still find a way to work in some really great tasting cereal into your own diet and your plan. And speaking of great tasting, they've just released 2 limited time offer flavors, maple waffle and cookies and cream. I have both of those right now that I've been enjoying. So if you're interested in getting that, you can go to magicspoon.com and use my code BASEMENT to save yourself $5 off your own order. You can make a variety pack of any flavors you want, including those new ones I just listed. But again, that's magicspoon.com, and we really appreciate them taking the time to sponsor these videos. All right, so let's talk about where we are at this time. And one of the things that kind of threw me for a loop with this strength training block was I've become accustomed to all the max effort sets being all within the same week. So I'd look at it as a max effort week, which to me was the week before the deload. You know, then obviously you have the deload, the active recovery, you feel better, going fresh, and you start things over again. That's how it ran for the first 2 hypertrophy blocks. And I assumed the same would be for the strength block as well. And I'm the type of person that doesn't get into the day-to-day stuff so much anymore. I kind of just let the app do its thing. And in most cases, I don't look at my training until like the night before. I just don't have a need to do that. And when I did this time, what I found was I actually had a max effort set a week early. So instead of all being on the week before the deload, I had one 2 weeks before the deload, which I wasn't mentally prepared for at first. And I kind of started freaking out like, oh crap, I don't want to do this tomorrow. But it actually, I think, worked out for the best because it ended up giving me 3 days between my max effort deadlift and my max effort squat. Whereas if I did them all in the same week, there would only been 2 days of recovery in between. So it kind of gave me an extra day, which I appreciate because things went really well. So that first max effort session was, again, 2 weeks early. It was on day 3, a Thursday. It was for deadlifts from the floor. It was supposed to go for an RPE 10, as are all your max effort sets. I went for 545, and I think I rated it somewhere between a 9 and a 9.5. It looked a lot better on film probably than it felt at the time. But I didn't have a lot of form breakdown, and things moved smoothly and consistently, which I'm a big fan of. One of the issues I ran into on the hypertrophy block was I was rating everything way too easy. I was undershooting a lot of my stuff, which is great because it means I'm stronger than I thought. But the downside is I feel like I was taking something from my training because my next training block, my training numbers probably aren't going to be as high as they should be based off of my strength levels. So I'm hoping now that in this particular strength block that I'm in, I can get a little bit closer to that RPE 10 that I'm shooting for, thus giving me more accurate training numbers in the following weeks. All right, so as I said, I had 3 days between deadlifts and squats, which for me was the weekend, which was great because, again, that extra day of rest really helped. But I also think I've kind of found a way to dial in my Peloton addiction, which I've been talking about a little bit. I've been really liking that bike, but I got to the point when I first got it that I used it too much where I had built up a bunch of fatigue in my quads and my legs, and it was impacting my training. I think I'm in a good spot right now with that. So going into Monday, the goal was to hit a set of 6, again at RPE 10. I really had in my mind that I wanted to hit 495. Now my training max going into this was 525, so not far off. And I kind of had a moment of doubt that said, you know what? This might be a little bit heavy. I might not be able to get all 6 reps, or they're going to be pretty gross, but really wanted that number. And I pushed myself, and I actually found that I think I undershot this one a little bit. Again, form stayed consistent, didn't have that knee cave that typically happens when I get fatigued for squats. I feel like my form was pretty much there. The bar speed stayed pretty consistent even on that 6th rep. So probably again about RPE 9, 9.5. But again, much more accurate than I've been doing, which I'm looking forward to, but also a little bit hesitant on because I know the training coming up is really going to kick my butt. But again, to have that deadlift success carry over to the squat success, I think really built a lot of positive momentum going for the last max effort session, which was bench, which is at the end of that week. So bench, right? Probably my least favorite lift. Also probably one of my weakest lifts in relation to my body weight. No coincidence, I'm sure. But I had a goal here of 280 pounds. Again, the goal set of 6 at RPE 10. And I really wanted to hit this just because the week previous I did 275 for 6, which I actually rated at like an RPE 8 or 8.5. So I figured that maybe a 280 at 9.5 was probably doable. And that's what it ended up being. So I did exactly what I wanted to do. Still not happy, even though I know I should be, because I just want my bench to be better. And I think a big part of that is probably some of my mechanics. Now, the obvious thing is to say, hey, you need to increase your arch in your back. You need to increase your leg drive. Anyone's been watching for a long time knows that's probably just not happening. It's not something that I'm actively saying, oh no, I'm not going to arch. I'm not going to use leg drive. It's just given my mobility in my back and the bone spurs in it. I haven't got to that point yet. I do think a low-hanging fruit to attack though would probably be the way my elbows track and maybe some of my grip positions or distance. So I think I'm going to mess around with those just a little bit just to see if I can improve some things, because what I noticed in the hypertrophy blocks is like my wide grip felt really good. Close grip always feels really good too. So maybe just something with my standard grip, it's just could be improved upon. So I'm going to play around with that a little bit. But overall, for those 3 sessions of squatting, benching, and deadlifting, I'm really happy with the numbers that came out to be. So I think the thing I enjoyed most about this strength training block were the max effort sets, and not just because they went really well, but because they were so different in terms of the volume from the hypertrophy blocks. Now, it goes without saying, right? Hypertrophy, high volume, strength, lower volume. The thing with me though is those max effort sets on the hypertrophy block, they weren't that bad. Again, I undershot them, which is fine, but I'd have a top set with the goal of an RPE 10 and then back offs of that same exercise for like 6 sets of fairly heavy weight compared to what my top set was. So by the end of those sessions, I was rating the difficulty at an RPE 9 or 10, where in most cases, most of the other sessions were like a 6 or a 7. So those ones were really tough for me. Not to say that they weren't tough here in the strength training block, but with that top set, I'd only have like 2 back off sets. And especially when I'm looking at a day like my day 1 or day 3, where I'm squatting, benching, and deadlifting, those max efforts and those volumes for back offs can really kick my butt. Wasn't as much the case with the strength block as it was for those initial hypertrophy ones. So I'm very thankful about that. And if you're going that way too, just know that it is getting easier. I have seen questions for people like, what do you do if you run out of time? You can log that in the app itself. The app also has a built-in timer section. So if you're finding that you take way too much time between sets, put the timer on. Make sure you're not resting a long time, especially when it comes to the accessory work. Obviously for the main compounds, you want to make sure you're rested and able to attack each set. But like for things like bicep curls and triceps, put a minute or so, or even less in some cases, between sets and just kind of bang through them. And that'll really help speed up your workout. Hopefully this video helped you. If you have other questions you want to know answered, leave those in the comment section below. But in the meantime, as always, thanks for watching and stay big.